So for part two of the 2025 Black Toe release vid, comparison vid, kind of already went over the what I perceive the leather to be and just kind of the overall quality of the overlays. You can always catch the part one if that's foreign to you. You obviously have a black tongue on these, which is pretty distinctive, and the stamping for the letters, which I actually love that they're the same basic shape as the word Nike, you know, found on a tongue tag or really anywhere on the standard Nike font. And one other thing I noticed actually in kind of staring at these for a sec is I actually prefer these older style laces. They're a little bit thicker. It's a tighter weave. They're a little less, more static. They don't have much elasticity to them. The laces that are coming with the current model are definitely more of a, I would say, traditional, just general Jordan retro lace. These remind me of the same laces I'd see in a pair of 5s or 6s. Same kind of weave thickness. Definitely has a different feel, a little more give to them, a little more stretch. Not a bad thing, just not my preference, but it is probably a little closer to an original. And looking at the toe shape and some other features, comparing, something that's almost a decade old, I guess it is actually a full decade old. I don't really see much difference actually in toe height. It's a little more slanted back, and I do think, as I explained, that this toe box will hold up better with time. These kind of came almost pre-creased because of some kind of ballasting issue where I believe they don't use enough leather underneath the upper before they glue the sole on, and it creates kind of this weird creasing effect that's really prevalent on Jordan 1s, at least up through maybe now. You also got the liner difference, which I think I pointed out. It's kind of a sateen liner, a little thicker. Whether that's good or bad, it'll probably be more comfortable to wear, and it's not really visible from a heel perspective. It doesn't look thicker, and easier to get your foot in and out of than the more traditional kind of netted mesh, I guess you could call it. Anyway, moving on to the other prior Black Toe release. Obviously, you got white tongues, you got the fairy dust sparkle annoyance. I'm not sold on this being leather. I have a feeling this is synthetic. If it's leather, it's cheap. Some type of a compressed, flexible leather. And it might be. It could just be that the black paint is not good. This is definitely a vinyl. This swoosh is 100% synthetic. It's not even a question on that. And this, it probably is a leather. It's just a really annoying paint finish. But it has been plaguing Nike's, even Dunks and other things that have this finish dating back into the early 2000s. I've seen it show up on some pairs I've had. Obviously, these are worn. Have the older style laces, white tongue, the white logo, so it's a very different there. Probably the key factor. Overall, the shape of these is a lot more sloped forward to my eye compared to the look of that, which does slope a little forward, but it's really more of a panel stacking and proof of how thick these individual panels are. I mean, you're talking a layer over layer, layer, like you're 5 layers deep here. So it's creating it's staying upright really well compared to an actual slope forward last that these have. You got the logo difference, traditional wings versus the sample tagging. As iconic as that is, I actually really dig the stamp. I just like that it looks like a sample. I think it's cool. Also like that the swooshes are actual leather on these. Black tongue is welcomed on this thing to get dirty. These feel more like they used a cheap leather that's generally a little thinner and then just really over tumbled it to make it soft. They're almost too soft. They just have this like overtly pliable feel, which is nice for wearing, just not as nice for longevity. They can break in and then look really broken in, as opposed to wrinkled and creased and that kind of thing. The white paneling, I would say, is pretty similar. Definitely a little bit of a down step from the Carolina pair, which is just ever so slightly nicer, if at all. Not even sure that it is. Might be about the same. I would say these absolutely, again, thicker leather, a little bit nicer, and just a better looking shape. So holding them kind of side by side, you can see that the reds are brighter on the new one too, which is kind of interesting considering that the midsole is darker and mine really hasn't yellowed on the 2016. So yeah, kind of a good comparison. In terms of something else to compare the leather to, let's get into another pair here. Bang, got the Airship Pros here. If you missed my vid on this, I did it about, almost 5 years ago, I think, around the time they came out. And this is the first pair I thought of when I saw pictures of these surface because of the leather, not because of the sample or early in Mike's career aspect, but really the finish on this leather is exactly what I thought I was seeing on the pictures of these, and turns out it was pretty dang right. It's a dyed full grain leather. It's not a painted look. It's really thick cut. Kind of see the lines up under here, and it's really well layered. Has a nice matte finish, or semi, like I would call it matte or eggshell maybe. But logo lettering wise, granted that's kind of softly silk screened on there. It's not imprinted into the shoe like the wing is here. Not quite the same. You can tell the biggest difference in the width of the letters and the J, but similar. And I love the huge swoosh on ships. Just a nice little bit chunkier swoosh going through this part. But the leather quality of these was pretty astounding to me because I really hadn't seen Jordan or Nike use that like literally top to bottom on a shoe, maybe ever. Love how tall the tongues are on these two. It's ridiculous. And to see that come back in this new release of the sample Black Toes or reimagined Black Toes is a beautiful thing to me. I wish it was on the white part too. I don't know that they'll ever copy that on the white. There must be some kind of I want to give them a little benefit of the doubt and think that there might be an actually aspect to how this color is produced on leather that's hard to copy or make sheer white when using this type of leather. And maybe it has a tendency to want to be more of a darker natural color, and it's hard to bleach out or not paint. So I'm guessing there's some kind of a manufacturing thing, and I could be giving him too much benefit of the doubt, but it does make you wonder because this one has no white on the upper, and obviously the entire thing is the same leather. So anyway, I think that's a really valid comparison. Seeing these side by side, you got the cool bag here, covered my snare with, and it's definitely a similar construction and something we rarely ever see from the brand. And lastly, just for kicks, brought out a very unusual thing to see. Pair of Saucony compared to an Air Jordan. Saucony has a tendency to defaultedly use pretty high-end materials for the money. One of the major attractions. These happen to be actual Horween leather, and that's really the only indicator besides their website when you order them. These were released, I don't know, a handful of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I think. It's Horween, and then Oxblood is the obviously the red color, kind of a perfect shade of red for this release. And these are a literal inside and out Horween build. These are official Saucony maroon laces. They sadly didn't come with them. They came with this waxed, technically black but looks gray set. Anyway, these are clearly broken in and worn. They feel like a really, really nice baseball glove, of which Horween does make baseball gloves, or the leather used by major companies like Mizuno and Wilson, etc. Anyway, you even got the leather liner on the top part of the collar. The tongue is leather. I mean, there's just no expenses spared on these. And so it's a good comparison to something that's like thick cut from one of the best leather producers on the planet. happens to be right there in the US of A, which I think is one of the only ones that has, high production tanneries that is used across the globe and located in the US. But they, I don't think they really compare to these in a direct sense, but I do think it's close. I think there's a subtle a softness and a suppleness to these, along with how thick they are. That's really hard to beat. It feels almost like deer tanned without the tanning, and it's pretty impressive to have in hand, and it definitely adds to the comfort. But I do think when you compare it to this, what I'm going to very strongly presume is a full grain leather, that it compares up pretty close. I mean, for not being actual Horween tanned, and definitely stiffer. These will take a little more breaking in, but interesting to see, something of that caliber compared to a Jordan at all, because they're typically not ever found on something like a Jordan. So I thought that was kind of a fun comparison to pull out, just kind of random. Something you don't see every day is the Azura, by the way, Azura ST officially, which is debossed into the leather's tongue tag. But yeah, comfy shoe if you don't have a pair. Definitely recommend them. The Horween, I think that's one of the only examples they've used. They might have done it on a Wolverine Worldwide Shadow Original, I want to say, that looks like a hiking boot. It's tan. It's a low top, but it's colored like a hiking boot, and it's one of the rare examples where they've used they might have used Horween leather on those. I can't recall. I'm not a big Shadow Original fan, but anyway, that kind of breaks it down with some various looks at the just kind of quality aspect, the shape of these, and kind of the time and effort that the brand put into these, which is a nice change of pace. I've been pretty impressed with the Reimagined line, and these are no exception. So whether they're on sale or being passed up because they're not hype, or whatever the dumb reseller terms are, bricks, Jordan 1s are dead, all the different stupid things people say to justify why they're buying something else. You can forget all that notion. Just buy yourself a really decent quality shoe for the money, which is not something you can say every time you buy a Jordan. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. Cheers.